Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. For those that don't know me, I'm Cecile Nis. I'm working at Ephemer and I'm currently coordinator of the PREP4BLUE project. We're happy to welcome you today to our final conference, where we will showcase you our various results of interest, hopefully for all of you. As you can see, currently this is the agenda. So we run from 9:30 to 1 with a coffee break in between, and we have more or less half an hour slots per topic. And depending on timing, we may accept some questions directly after the topic. Otherwise, we have a special session at the end, a Q&A session. Without further ado, I will start to give you a bit of a context of the mission and PREP4BLUE. PREP4BLUE was written in 2020-2021, where we were like, the mission, what's that? What is a mission? So it was the beginning of a change of paradigm in a scientific approach with co-creation and co-implementation, having various synergies, and also the implementation of lighthouses. Since then, we have a better definition also. So the EU missions, they are a new way to bring concrete solutions to some of our greatest challenges. The mission we're mostly interested here now is the mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters. It tackles one of the European societal problems, and it aims to have impact through a new role for research and innovation, portfolio of actions, new forms of governance and collaboration, and citizen participation. For those that don't know about the mission Ocean has three main objectives: to protect and restore marine and freshwater ecosystems, prevent and eliminate pollution of our oceans, seas, and waters, and make the blue economy carbon neutral and circular. Now, once we have a bit of the context of the mission, what about PREP4BLUE? So PREP4BLUE was there to help prepare the implementation of the mission. We started in June 2022, and we're running until May this year. And we were implementing and starting at the same time as the mission started. So there has been some little hiccups in terms of timings and adaptations. And PREP4BLUE helped to create some tools, processes, guidelines, and so on to help the EC and also the mission stakeholders to get heavily involved in the mission Ocean and Waters. PREP4BLUE is not alone in the mission, so we have a mission ecosystem. Here you have mainly the CSAs, which we call Coordination and Support Action. There are 5 CSAs for the mission Ocean and Waters. All 5 of them have the aim of helping preparing the mission. PREP4BLUE is more overarching, and each of the basin CSAs are focused on their specific lighthouse area. So we have Atlantic, Arctic, Baltic, North Sea, Mediterranean, and Danube and Black Sea with EcoDali. This is with the CSAs. This is now currently the community of mission projects. So as you can see, it's a lot of projects, more than 60. I haven't counted all of them anymore. And we aim really to work everybody together to collaborate to really reach the mission objectives. PREP4BLUE is, so as I told you before, started in June 2022 and runs until May 2025. It has a budget of a bit less than 5 million. We have 18 partners spread over 9 EU countries. And we have our main website, prep4blue.eu, which we will showcase later on. Our more specific objective was to co-create to support research and innovation goals and to facilitate a successful first phase of the mission by developing co-creation and co-implementation modalities required to achieve the mission objectives and preparing the ground for inspiring citizens and stakeholders at the mission demonstrator or lighthouse sites. These are the outcomes we were aiming for. So creating synergies between mission governance and stakeholders, inspiring an innovation communication aspect to engage the stakeholders with the mission, a database of project and innovation solution, and AI-driven tools to create a knowledge management system, recommendations for enabling a regulatory and financial environment to help prepare the mission, and tools, guidelines, trainings, help desk, and so on to test methodologies for co-creation, complementation of knowledge with citizens and stakeholders. PREP4BLUE is split in 6 work packages. Each one of these work packages has one main topic. The ones that are most of interest to yours are the one of work package 2, so the mission communication. Then we have the citizen engagement work package 3, the knowledge management, the business and regulations and finance, and the stakeholders engagement. Each one of this work package is here today and is going to showcase their main results and outcomes of interest for the mission ecosystem. Beside that, we were also here to create linkages between digital tools and the mission ecosystems. As you can see, this nicely driven draft, a bit confusing. So we have the mission dashboard, but to have a mission dashboard, you have lots of inputs of different kinds of data with actors, stakeholders, knowledge, activities, enriched by an ontology to create then a database and build an interface. Here is just a brief overview. It's a bit too small, but these are the fact sheets of our main outcomes as of March 2025. They're available online, but the work package leaders will be the best to give you more information on that. And now our next speaker is work package 4 with Clina and Cecilia. I give you the floor. I just need to stop sharing. I think it's that way. Irini, can you take over? I have some issues with.
Yeah, try to take over.
I think I can.
Clina, you can take over directly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now.
Good.
Can you see that okay now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much, Cecile. And welcome everyone. Good morning to you all. I'm Work Package 4 leader, Clina Nichalchan from Erin Innovation. And as Cecile mentioned, Work Package 4 is on knowledge management for the Research and Innovation Core, identifying and transferring knowledge and solutions to support the mission. So our main objective was to showcase at pilot scale fit for purpose methods to manage knowledge in support of the mission. We have 5 different tasks, and I'm going to ask each of my task leaders to bring you through their approach and their main results shortly. And we'll finish with a demonstration of the main tool wavelengths. I just want to add that significant effort and resources were deployed by all the Work Package 4 partners. Excuse me. And I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate them and thank the task leaders for their work to date, which is very impressive. And I hope you'll find it very useful and beneficial today. So to talk about the philosophy behind our work, the management and ultimate transfer of knowledge isn't easy. It doesn't always follow a linear path. It's rarely a singular activity, and impact can be very hard to track and monitor. The end user is rarely the next person who should take up the knowledge. This is what we understand and what we brought into PREP4BLUE at the very start. The knowledge isn't typically ready for end users yet. Most knowledge that's generated by EU-funded projects, even those from the IAs and those closer to market, are not ready for uptake and application by the end user. More work is generally needed. Further validation, demonstration, feasibility, scale-up, etc. There can be regulatory, policy, societal change that are often factors that need consideration. So there can be so many different steps and actors and timeframes that are involved, and that there may be a need to engage different stakeholders as part of this journey. Therefore, central to Work Package 4 work has been the understanding that determining an informed pathway to impact is crucial to understanding how to achieve impact and to measure the success of planned transfer activities. So Cecile has already shown you the bigger version of this graphic. I've kind of added a little bit more to it to show that how overall we have worked to show how knowledge management can be made more efficient and effective through both the finding and making knowledge available and accessible through a publicly available database, which is underpinned with a sophisticated ontology and semantic network, but also in how developing and understanding the pathways to impact specific to the knowledge generated is crucial to accelerating impact being achieved and ensuring there is that evidence of uptake and application. So the Work Package 4 results include how different data sets were compiled into wavelengths and enriched using a PREP4BLUE developed mission-specific ontology and semantic network. Analysis criteria informed the identification of potential sources of knowledge and solutions, and over 100 key exploitable results were ultimately identified and described. Of these, over 20 have pathways to impacts developed, and these are also the process of being uploaded to wavelengths. Having these examples of pathways was crucial to prove the feasibility of the pilot online knowledge transfer showcasing modules. These also use the ontology and semantic network. And what they do is they support the initial landscape mapping that's needed to then further explore and develop a robust pathway to impact, understanding who the stakeholders would be, the relevance of the knowledge to their activities and their work, connections through different projects and activities, and so on. So while this is still in its early stages, this pilot shows how systems and processes can support the management of knowledge, its transfer, and ultimately impact achievement and measurement. I will pass over now to the task leaders. I'm conscious of time, but I have one more slide I want to show you. So as Cecilia said, we have the PREP4BLUE website, and this is where all of our results and our different deliverables are contained. So here's a QR code if anyone needs. I'm sure the presentations will be made publicly available later. If you go into PREP4BLUE website, go to resources and look under knowledge management, you can get further detail and links to the deliverables and other documentation. Thank you very, very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation. Renee, I'll hand over to you then, if that's okay. I'll stop sharing.
Yes, of course. One moment, I need to share my slides. The usual hassle. So, whoops. Okay, hopefully you should see a few slides now.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so my task was to develop the ontology and the semantic network for representing the knowledge within the mission. So, and the first question, of course, which needs to be answered is, what is an ontology? What is a semantic network? So in general, an ontology is a generalized representation of knowledge in a particular domain. That means it describes the concepts, the properties, and of course, the relation between these concepts in a formal manner. A semantic network, on the other hand, is a way to implement an ontology. So basically, an ontology is the blueprint. And when I put real data in the ontology, I get a semantic network. Basically, that was my task. And if the next slide function works or not. So for the mission Ocean ontology, we had a look at what main domains needs to be addressed. So in this map, you see that we addressed 5 main topics. That is the research domain, the business domain, the actors domain, which is basically people, group, actors, stakeholders, the legal domain, which is policies and legislations, and what I call the marine ecosystem. That is when you need to address specific marine terms like species and so things. We had a look at already existing ontologies, basically provided by the UX. For example, for funding, there's the Stingo ontology, which also is included in our version. And of course, we have a lot of authored taxonomies included, like the Eurocyborg, NACE, TLR, Getty, and so on. Just a little bit facts behind. Our mission ontology is based on the CDOC CRM. That is basically an ontology which comes from the cultural heritage domain, but has been established as a conceptual reference model for a lot of ontologies, and it's a really good base, and we extended it with the classes that were needed to express the mission concepts. When you do that, you end up with something like this. It's a representation of the semantic network. You see we have basically the blue ones, which are mission-related concepts. We have general concepts from the CDOC model itself represented in green. And for example, the yellow things are the ones that come from the funding ontology from the European Union. And basically, when you put this all together, what we have in the end is we have an ontology definition. We are able to build the semantic network based on Python tools. As a backend, we use the graph database, Neo4j, in order to instantiate this graph. And we've integrated this ontology within wavelinks. And later in the demo, we'll show that we use it, for example, to identify stakeholders from our data database. And with that, I would give basically back to the next person, unless there are questions, of course, but I think we will spare them for the end.
Thanks, Renee. We'll pass over to Alexander, if that's okay.
Yes. I will take over the screen. Right. Yes, so task 4.2 was to map and visualize research and innovation activities relevant to the mission. And the way we went about this was to create a large database and wavelengths. Wavelengths is kind of the child of both PREP4BLUE, Blue Mission AA, and Blue Mission banners, and it aims to establish collaboration between different projects to facilitate connections with stakeholders, to explore citizen science initiatives and explore solutions, as well as stakeholder engagement methods. The way it was conceived was first of all by mapping a bunch of data. And this was done both looking in two different paths. So we were looking through projects that had relevancy to the mission ocean objectives, but also gaining a lot of partner inputs from all the partners in both PREP4BLUE, Blue Mission AA, and Blue Mission banners. And this resulted in a very large database of 5,000 or close to 6,000 projects, close to 1,000 citizen science initiatives. 14,000 stakeholders, and I think the current number of solutions is 169, as well as a number of stakeholder engagement methods. And all of that can be explored on Wavelengths. So Wavelengths is this big platform, data-driven platform that both visualizes all of this data on mission-relevant activities, but it's also a place where you can explore the different data sets and go more in depth, search through the database, filter it by a number of different filters, and also get a more detailed view. What you will also see later is we've also been implementing the ontology that René just presented, and it has created this this module that you see in the side. It's actually been updated. There's more to it than what you see currently. But we'll show that later, where you can see how to find relevant stakeholders. I think that will be it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexander. Cecilia, would you mind bringing us through 4.3 and 4.4, please?
Sure, thank you very much. I hope you can see it well. So I will dive a little bit deeper into the methodology that Clina already introduced. So in the task 4.3, we worked mainly on the collection and analysis of mission knowledge and solutions, which were also already mentioned by Alexander and that you have seen in the tool, Wavelengths. So the knowledge transfer method developed by Erin Innovation has three main steps: the collection, the analysis, and the transfer of knowledge to ultimately foster application uptake and impact. And as Clina mentioned, the identification and collection of knowledge is very much at the core. The identification, specifically of key exploitable results, which are actionable research findings. And the analysis helps us to map pathways to impact and to inform these deeply. In PREP4BLUE, we have worked with expert panels, 6, and in each panel we had 3 experts from diverse research institutions to map, to inform the pathways to impact, which then shall be transferred. And what Clina also mentioned is that the measurement of impact is very important at this step. To actually identify the key exploitable results for the mission Restore Ocean and Waters, we developed analysis criteria. These were developed to prioritize the solutions, or in this case, key exploitable results, based on 3 criteria and underlying indicators. What we have also seen that we have used them furthermore through the project. For example, to also prioritize pathways to impact among the landscape mapping that you have seen very briefly, and to ultimately this way then foster that impact towards the mission objectives and targets of the mission. So here I show again an overview of our work. We have sourced knowledge and solutions based on an abstract search of more than 800 projects and other sources of knowledge. And we have applied quantitative and qualitative filters to simply prioritize based on the analysis criteria that I presented. And this way, we have identified via the undertaking more than 40 interviews and more than 100 projects contacted. We have identified more than 100 key exploitable results, which then were analyzed in the analysis step and validated by the knowledge owners. And this way, we work with more than 20 high priority key exploitable results to develop pathways to impact and to foster the uptake, application, and impact. You can also read the deliverable 4.2, reading more about the customized knowledge management method for the mission Restore Ocean and Waters based on the methodology by Arin Innovation. So now I come to our next task, the knowledge transfer of high potential mission knowledge and solutions, which we have already discussed. And here you can really see that we have based the knowledge transfer online showcasing module that has been mentioned already, which is informed through the mission ontology developed by Fraunhofer Austria, developed by René, and which is implemented on wavelengths by SDU by Alexander. And here you can really see how it mirrors and how it reflects and how the methodology, really informs these modules that we have developed. The identification of the knowledge, here you see a description of the knowledge on the left side. And we map the pathways to impact based on the desktop research and expert panels. So this is really deeply informed. And what we have seen in this effort in PREP4BLUE, we piloted this step with a group of partners. And what we have seen is that the ontology can really help us in the landscape mapping that was introduced by Clina and which we will showcase a bit more in detail later. Here you see a screenshot of the landscape mapping supported through the ontology and the semantic network. As Alexander introduced, a module to prioritize the stakeholders and to rank these, and a tool to actually visualize your pathway to impact. And you can also see a demo video that we included and read again more in our deliverable, in this case, the 4.5, the demonstration of the knowledge transfer online showcasing module about our work in this regard. What I would like to show you is our work behind the scenes in the development of the pathways to impact, which was done before we had the modules implemented. So this was really mainly based on the desktop research and expert insights, and to really transfer knowledge to the expected outcomes to create an eventual impact towards the mission objectives and targets. And what you can see here is, for example, a very detailed landscape mapping made by Justine at CPMR. Many thanks for the great work. So you can really see, like, this is very detailed, very informed. You can see the many actors, the different pathways that can be taken. And what we think and what the methodology really shows is that sometimes that happens, that knowledge aims to be transferred, and somebody who has not such a very clear methodology to work with might go one pathway and then the other, a bit of trial and error. But to make it really efficient and effective, the knowledge transfer, you can very deeply inform it and follow the steps by the methodology to reach the impact earlier. And that is our aim, to really restore the ocean and waters by 2030, ideally. And here you can also see, again, we have the knowledge output, the solution at our center of work. And to reach to the eventual impact, we would identify several target users. Clina explained, it is rarely a one-step way forward. So what we do is we show the needed transfer activity in the pathway, its application, and we measure the impact at each step of application. And this way we can then also monitor and track the impact across the pathway to impact. What I want to show you now is the knowledge transfer online showcasing module, but you will see that also in a small demonstration. So I will go very briefly, very fast through this. Here you see again the solution at its center and different potential stakeholders, potential target users mapped through the ontology to this specific solution. So the pink dots are stakeholders and this brown one are the solutions. I just say that because maybe that's then easier later to understand directly from our demonstration. Here you see the ranking of the potential stakeholders. And again, feel free to watch our demo video. What I do want to show you is how we translated the development of the pathways to impact into the modules. So here you can see for this example, for example, it's a two-step pathway. And what you can see, we start again from the solution. We identify transfer activities, target user, application, the outcome of that application, and impact indicators to measure that impact per step. And this allows us a very good tracking. So I hope for all mission projects, this will be a very helpful tool, both with the analysis criteria to prioritize which are the outputs of your project that are most relevant to the mission objectives and targets, and then to use our tool and to measure your transfer impact across the different steps that you might undertake. So I pass on to Laura Vetter to explain on the task 4.5. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to share my screen. So hi, in the PREP4BLUE project, we piloted a dashboard to support tracking in the progress of the mission Ocean. And this work builds on and was developed alongside the existing Wavelinks platform and its semantic network to connect the project's outcomes and stakeholders directly to the mission objectives. The goal is to turn complex project data into actionable insights for users like policymakers, researchers, investors, and citizens. The mission dashboard concept makes these insights easily accessible and tailored to user needs using requirement engineering methods, user stories like, for example, as a policymaker, I want to see which projects drive regulatory change so that I can identify collaboration opportunities. So these were structured. And afterwards, we translated the expectations into real dashboard features. These include, for example, smart search and filtering and clear visual cues. Everything is designed to be intuitive and support daily decision-making. So we focused on 5 key functionalities. The first one is data and information. So reliable project and policy data in one place. The linkages, so how projects, funding, or policy data are connected. And then the search and filter, so find what matters and that in a very fast way. Then networking and collaboration, so to see who's working on what topics. And last but not least, the user experience to have like a responsive, clear, and inclusive design. So a standout is the semantic network search, offering both like structured lists and interactive graph views, so users can explore the ecosystem from multiple angles. The second task was to track the progress. We developed the key performance indicators. These measure implementation, scientific output, the policy impact, stakeholder engagement, and environmental benefits. The KPIs are visualized through interactive charts, maps, and trend tiles, all filterable. This makes it easy for users to spot trends, identify gaps early, and stay informed. Going forward, we still recommend linking the KPIs more closely to the semantic network and improving data standardization and scaling this flexible framework across multiple European marine regions. But in short, we think that wavelengths can become the central dashboard for the mission ocean, empowering users with real-time insights, better coordination, and smarter strategies to restore our ocean and waters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. That's fantastic. And just so you know, there is a deliverable 4.6 on the mission dashboard concept and framework as well that will be publicly available. Cecilia, I might pass over to you, please, for the demonstration. We have 3 minutes left. So if you and Alexander Renee, please bring us through a live demonstration, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much. Sharing in my screen. Sorry. Can't see how I can get out. So here you can see the wavelengths dashboard, and here in the database you can see different types of databases, and where we want to show you now the knowledge transfer online showcasing module is in this solutions tab. So you click on the solutions, select a solution, and here you would see the different modules. As I already introduced, here you can explore your stakeholder landscape. We very much recommend to support this a lot with expert panels, but we hope that this tool might also help, especially amplifying the horizon to discuss with the experts. And so here you can see across the different nodes that Renee explained, the stakeholders mapped to the specific solution. You can also see the potential stakeholder ranking per solution. So it is really focused on the specific solution. And here again, you can expand this graph by double-clicking, by amplifying this graph. You can see, for example, here are 13 other solutions mapped to this solution, and we think this is a very great tool to really see the synergies, because we think that this way, for example, also in collaboration across these different solutions, we might gain a bigger impact than with one solution alone. Often they can be combined and will support each other on a technical level. You also see different projects mapped to it. The projects are these blue dots. So here I will not amplify this with 800 projects, but you can expand and contract the graph as you please. You can see the different type of stakeholders mapped to it and explore this further. And then you can also explore your pathway to impact, and again see here the connections, the synergies per pathway to impact, exploring your landscape. So this way you can play with the tool. And I don't know if I have used all the 3 minutes, but please add to what I have said, Alexander and Renee, if you'd like to add a sentence.
Renee, perhaps could you speak again to how the ontology does this? How does it talk to all the different data points in the back end?
Yeah, so what we did is basically we took the data from the Mission Ocean database and for example, use the description of the solution to generate the green bubbles, which are more or less subjects for the solution. And then we use this a similar description, for example, from the stakeholders' web pages in order to create their subjects. And if they match, then you get basically this nice graph where they are connected. And this is the way you can navigate from a solution to a stakeholder, either directly because the stakeholder and the solution share the same subjects, or maybe going from a solution to a subject, to a research project, and to a participant of a research project. So they have multiple ways to come to a stakeholder. And this is basically also addressed in the matching score. So take, for example, you have a solution, you have a stakeholder, and that stakeholder took part in a project which shares, let's say, 5 out of 6 subjects of the solution. This is higher ranked than maybe a stakeholder, which is part of a project which just shares just one common subject with the solution. And there's a little bit of math behind it, so you get, I think, a really nice ranking in order to see, okay, this stakeholder is more relevant to the topic than basically other.
Thanks, Renee. I think we're out of time, but Alexander, is there anything you want to add before we hand back over to coordination?
I just want to say that people should really go to Wavelinks and try it out for themselves, because I think that's the best way that you really get a hands-on experience and can explore all of these things together. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back over to yourself, Cecile. And I just want to say we do have a lot of documentation and the video and deliverables that explain all of these different concepts and results more clearly as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your interesting presentation. I hope it inspired the others attending. Now let's move on to the next topic. The next topic is on citizen and stakeholder engagement. So this is led by David White and Massi Pina. You can go ahead.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Let me just get my slides together. Done.
While he's doing that, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll pick them up as we go on or at the end of our meeting.
Great. Are you just seeing the full slides there, not the presenter view? Lovely. Okay, so today my name's David White. I'm from University College Cork, where we led a team for PREP4BLUE that worked on citizen engagement in the mission and trying to increase citizen participation across the mission across Europe. So I'll be talking a little bit about our experiences from that, some of the tools we developed, some recommendations for further work, and some resources that PREP4BLUE have that will help you do it. So I thought I'd just start off by setting the scene a little bit with a quote from our deputy mission manager, a fellow Irishman called John Bell. So if anyone's heard John talk, he often says a version of this at big mission events. So it goes something like, the EU is about doing together what is impossible apart. The mission isn't supposed to do what can be done. It's supposed to do the impossible. With the EU, we have made peace many ways before. First, it was with coal and steel, then reconciling the continent, then through building the single market. And now our latest mission is to make peace with nature. So when you hear John speak, and when you hear people talk about the mission at these kind of meetings, the sense of building community around a shared cause always comes out very strongly. And I think that's kind of one of the hallmarks of the mission approach. Instead of kind of working in a siloed way on specific pieces of work, we're all part of the same kind of common challenge. And so we really took this as kind of the philosophy of our citizen engagement work, and to try and build that community and help others do the same. So a few of the things that we did and a few of the experiences that we had. First of all, we started off by developing citizen engagement methods and tools that would be useful to ourselves and to other projects. And we didn't do this in the abstract of, there's a lot of good material out there on how to do citizen engagement well. But what we focused specifically on is how to engage citizens in the citizen engagement expected outcomes of the mission. That was kind of the driving force of our work. And they're laid out very specifically or very explicitly in the mission implementation plan. By the way, I should say, if you want to have your phones at the ready, there's a couple of QR codes through these slides, which you can take from here, the resources, or they're all available on PREP4BLUE.eu anyway. So we developed kind of bespoke mission-specific citizen engagement methods, and also about to be delivered is a strategy to roll out a network of citizen assemblies for Mission Ocean. And again, that strategy is kind of how to do citizen assemblies, but within the mission ecosystem that is developed in terms of, the mission secretariat, basin level CSAs, a yearly mission forum. What are the roles for all these things? How can, individual projects and individual assemblies link up with them? So that was the start of our work, and that methods development was led by our colleagues in Nordland Research Institute in Norway. We also focused quite heavily on aquatic citizen science, as it's written through a lot of the Mission Ocean calls, the yearly Mission Ocean calls every year. There's strong focus on increasing participation through citizen science, about implementing citizen science as part of monitoring frameworks with local authorities. And as was already mentioned in the wavelengths presentation, we ended up creating a database of almost 1,000 aquatic citizen science initiatives, and that's oceans, coastal, but also rivers, lakes, everything like that, species, pollution, lots of different topics. I should say as well, this work was led by our colleagues in FLIS in Belgium. So this database is available here through that QR code and on wavelengths.eu. It's very helpful for anyone who wants to work with citizen science initiatives, identify citizen science initiatives close to them, or maybe working on a topic that either they'd like to get involved in or that are involved in something similar to them and they'd like to network with. So I'd highly recommend checking it out. And then also there is a report based on this work and on the research done with these 1,000 citizen science initiatives. The team at FLIS went on to interview some, do a survey amongst 1,000, interview some on challenges they have in aligning with the mission, in setting up the citizen science initiative, in making citizen science initiative more inclusive. Inclusivity is a very strong focus of the mission. I'll talk about on my next slide. And it's not something that citizen science generally works with from the start. We found some very good initiatives that specifically aim to work inclusively, but usually projects work with whoever the volunteers that they can find, and inclusivity isn't something that's kind of baked in from the start. So there's some very good recommendations on how to increase that in this report called Beneath the Surface. That's also available on PREP4BLUE.eu. So then coming back to this notion of inclusivity, and building community, I think this is one of the things that the mission is injecting into this way that we work. And it's great to see the yearly mission calls focus on this. There's always lines about your project must be inclusive. You see it quite strongly, I think, in mission events in phase 1 of the mission in terms of gender, especially, and in terms of age. There's kind of a lot of effort put into making panels gender equal, and there's a strong focus on ECOPs. I would say in phase one of the challenges remaining for phase 2 of the mission is to go beyond that. I think different forms of inclusion. So ethnic inclusion has been quite low in the mission so far. Disability inclusion, more work could be done on. So we have a webinar series on all this planning for citizen participation in terms of increasing inclusion, in terms of working with citizen science. There's 9 episodes. You can find them through that QR code there. They were very well attended during PREP4BLUE. We had 1,000 across our citizen engagement workshop series, 1,000 attendees and 2,000 views on YouTube. So it's been fantastic to see that uptake. And yeah, like I say, it's good work, but there's definitely a lot more work to do, and it would be great to see. Us all focus on it in the future. Another thing that I think that came up quite strongly in our work, and again will need to be a focus in phase 2 of the mission, is that Europe is a really exciting place to try and do something like this, but it's also a very challenging place because it's extremely diverse, and there's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different institutional histories. And so when we were, one of the aspects of the work we were doing was network mobilization. So networks that engage citizens, say like ocean literacy networks, to mobilize them, to orient them towards the mission. And we did that across different states. And what we found very strongly was that a one-size-fits-all approach will not work because of the diversity of experience within Europe. We had a very interesting experience of, setting up national level ocean literacy networks in different states. So we worked with the Irish Ocean Literacy Network, with Ocean Literacy Italia, with the Catalan Ocean Literacy Network. But what we really found, in our research found, is that due to the different histories, you'd say the experiences of how to work with volunteerism, what community level work looks like, how it's related to the state historically, that you need to approach them differently in each state. So what I'd say is that needs to be kind of a key part of the beginning of your work, is before you get out and implement strategy on the ground, is understand the local context and understand local partners and people. So you can read our recommendations about that kind of cross-cultural network mobilization through that QR code as well. So maybe just quickly some key impacts of our work. That aquatic citizen science database is being integrated into other EU projects to form a basis of their work. And like I said, I think it would be a benefit to anyone who's working in aquatic citizen science space to have a look at it. I really invite you to do it. We collaborated with the Ocean Decades Challenge 9 White Paper Committee. Challenge 9 of the UN Ocean Decade is skills, knowledge, and technology for all, which is obviously quite closely related to our work on citizen participation and co-design. So we collaborated with that White Paper Committee to make sure that PREP4BLUE's citizen engagement work and recommendations was written into it, to make sure there's synergy between the Ocean Decade and Mission Ocean on those points leading into the latter half of this decade. And also the participating methods developed by our work package in PREP4BLUE are being integrated into the Marine Protected Area designation process by the Irish government. And now, but I think beyond all that, and kind of beyond like specific task level work and deliverable work, I think what we've tried to do and what we've certainly started or laid a foundation for within PREP4BLUE is to help develop a capacitated Mission Ocean citizen engagement community of practice to help the key stakeholders understand the mission, value the mission, network with each other and collaborate to work with the mission, and hopefully be much more mobilized for phase 2 now than we were at the start of the decade. So I'll end there. Just one last thing. Well, we published this citizen engagement work in a journal article last year. It's available through that QR code, but it's called Planning for Citizen Participation in the EU Mission, and it's published by Maritime Studies. So you can all read that if you're interested. So that's it from me. I'll end there. Thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Over to Matthew then.
Yeah, thank you, Cecile. Thank you, David. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see it? Okay. So let me introduce. I'm Massimiliano Pinat. I work for the National Research Council of Italy, which coordinated work package 6 of PREP4BLUE. Sorry. Our work focused on developing strategies and tools to enable, let's say, a transdisciplinary and multi-actor collaboration that is strongly needed to support the mission's objective. The goal was to foster a culture of collaboration, but also to emphasize the environment's role as a crucial driver for social innovation. And to achieve this, we adopted a pentahelix model. So we worked on engaging mainly 5 types of stakeholders, so industry and businesses, public authorities, academia and the knowledge sector, associations, NGOs, and citizens and local communities. Regarding this last group, in PREP4BLUE, we adopted a methodological approach that distinguished between citizens as private individuals, so the focus of Dave's working group, and citizens acting as representatives of organizations or interest groups. So our focus was on engaging CSOs and NGOs into the Mission Ocean community of practice. Naturally, making this distinction in practice is not always easy, since the 2 groups often overlap, and particularly in the Mission Ocean context, where identifying stakeholders is complex, yet essential exercise for achieving effective stakeholder engagement. This is because if we define stakeholder as persons or organizations who have interests or responsibilities towards the mission objectives, then in reality, everyone has a stake in protecting and restoring our ocean and waters. And this highlights not only the ambitious, but also the challenging scope of the mission, which is truly a massive and transformative operation. So in our project, we not only defined a dynamic and collaborative approach to stakeholders, but we also applied it to the mission, even if in a very early embryonic stage, by analyzing the projects that could contribute to achieving its objective, the mission implementation plan, the Horizon Europe work programs, and the mission portfolio. So we started identifying stakeholders by listing, classifying individuals and organizations. Then we mapped them. That means that we segmented stakeholders into categories, and we try to understand their roles, interests, and relationships. And finally, we analyze the interest, needs, and potential influence of the different categories. One of the key lessons learned is how challenging it is to segment this ecosystem. Organizing stakeholders into groups and subgroups for effective and goal-oriented engagement is a very complex exercise that at the end transforms the pentahelix model into an extremely broad and complex stakeholder ecosystem of the mission ocean. Considering that the construction of the lighthouses was done not only on basin scales, but also in a goal-oriented way, we can say that we have multiple stakeholder ecosystems. And my opinion is that it's strongly needed to strengthen collaboration between them by creating horizontal connectors at the EU level and avoiding duplication of work and silo effect. And as my colleagues presented before, our contribution goes through the wavelengths, this tool, in particular, the one dedicated to stakeholders embedded in the wavelength platforms that allowed us to identify more than 14,000 stakeholders, but most of all, organizing them. And you know, as you have seen in the previous presentation, that the potential of this tool is incredible, since we can really organize this complexity around unique and strategic knowledge elements. But in wavelengths, we have also transferred digital tool, a database that gathers 47 engagement methods extracted from more than 160 deliverables from more than 60 projects. So it was really a huge work through the use of filters, and especially if you use the stakeholder engagement guidelines that we released in PREP4BLUE, we can guide you through the identification of models and strategies for engaging specific groups, as well as for achieving specific goals. Among this, a specific attention was given to key concepts such as co-design, co-implementation, and in particular to collaborative governance. The latter, this one was addressed in terms of integrated management, adaptive management, conflict resolution, co-management, policy development, capacity building, and education. To support the uptake, so to support the uptake of these engagement methods, these capacity building tools and co-creation approaches, we developed an help desk that we invite you to visit. Here we can find a QR code with a link to the help desk. You will find a lot of tools and resources. Some of those I've presented before, and in particular, we find a webinar series on stakeholder engagement where we gathered concrete experiences through interviews with key actors involved. And okay, we also tested some of these tools and models through some pilot stakeholder assemblies, 4 in particular, 1 per each lighthouse. This gave us the chance to test and validate some of the methods, but also our stakeholder mapping approaches, to work on work FS sessions, role-play games, participatory road mapping, but also fostering cross-regional learning and adaptation, the transferring good practices, such, for example, the Sea Parliament model or the local river contracts that can support a broader policy uptake. One reflection, building on this experience, I would like to share how much is important creating and funding permanent stakeholder committees. This will institutionalize the collaboration, but also ensure a stakeholder engagement from the very inception of project throughout their implementation and even beyond. Thus really enabling a mission-oriented approach. And well, we could say also that this could be a way for introducing incentives and encourage a broader and more active participation that responds to some of the recommendations that we collected for developing the capacity and strategic skills needed for stakeholder engagement for the future of the mission. We have indeed consolidated insights across PREP4BLUE to assess the skills required for transformative change, focusing on research and innovation core, policy and sectoral stakeholders, and of course, citizens and societal representatives. Our data sources included interviews, webinars, these ones addressing general skills, not specific for stakeholder engagement, which were indeed addressed through a dedicated focus group with the PREP4BLUE work package leaders. This work led to the identification of 22 key recommendations that we organized around thematics such as communication, knowledge transfer, social inclusion, and stakeholder and citizen engagement. As for the latter, we identified some strategic actions that are, let's say, our legacy to the future, to the mission and the mission projects, in particular about tailoring communication to fit each different stakeholder group contexts and needs, to involve stakeholders early, to integrate their feedback since the beginning, from the start of our actions or projects, to promote cross-sectoral collaboration between public, private, and research, of course, provide incentives, as I said before, in particular, travel grants or mentorship prizes to boost participation. Again, as I suggested before, coming from the experience of the pilot stakeholder assemblies, our recommendation is to set up permanent advisory bodies and set up, let's say, a transparent feedback mechanism. Then we suggest also to allocate from 5 to 10% of the budgets to fund small and local experiences and projects and groups. And finally, to integrate engagement into existing governance systems. That's it.
Thank you a lot, Masi. So we're still on time. We have 5 minutes left. That's great. If there's one burning question, we can take it. Otherwise, we will move on to the agenda, and we'll still have time at the end. Okay, let's move on then. So the next topic is support and enabling environments, business models, regulations, and financial ecosystems. So let me introduce Alberto Terenzi, which is a leader on this work package.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen and now in presentation mode. My name is Alberto Terenzi. I work for Espro and I am the leader of Work Package 5. And as Cecilia introduced, we've been working a lot on the enabling environment for the mission. So what do we need for the mission to scale up and become commonplace, become common practice? So we looked at business models, regulations, and financial ecosystems. And if we look at the main outcomes of Work Package 5, just to give you an overview, on the one hand, we worked on business model blueprints. So what business models exist out there that have already been used, that have already been tested, and that startups, but also public sector actors, also bigger companies can look at in order to replicate them and to conduct viable business while also supporting the mission regions. So how can regional authorities specifically especially through their smart specialization strategies, include mission adjacent or mission positive, so to say, objectives in their regional planning in order to also make sure that the local funding and the EU funding, the national fundings all go in one direction and what opportunities are out there for them. Then we also looked at financing models. You know, when you ask stakeholders what the major hurdle is for them reaching objectives, the first thing that usually comes out is money. We need money. So is there money out there, and what different types of financing opportunities exist? Plus, we've also looked at business models in terms of examples where, especially the collaboration between the private sector, the public sector, the research, and in some also NGOs and civil society has led to innovative example of successful collaboration. Finally, we've looked at policy recommendations, what policies are in place that support Mission Ocean and what are still to be either streamlined or created for different actors at different governance levels to pursue these objectives and make them their own. So this is just a brief overview, and just to say that some of the earlier deliverables that we produced will not be described in depth today, because we focus more on some kind of bite-sized later results, but they are the foundational we've done and very important. So I just wanted to mention this one on regional. The regional dimensional Mission Ocean, which I've already mentioned. And there we really look at smart specialization strategies and some great examples from regions that have already used their smart specialization strategies to push forward a positive development in the sense of Mission Ocean. But also we look at opportunities for regions. So for example, there are thematic smart specialization partnerships that region can unite forces on and support their S3 developments. There is the associated regions mechanism in Mission Ocean. So we also, through this report, wanted to give a heads up to regions on what's possible. Plus, we shed a light on other inter-regional collaboration frameworks, for example, the I3, but also we mentioned others that regions can leap at in order to obtain visibility and ultimately access funding and support for their planning. And this was developed in collaboration with CPMR and Inframer, just to also give credit to the colleagues. Another one, which was also kind of foundational in terms of then going on to the financing and business cases, is the sustainable business model blueprints that the Southern Danish University developed. And these are just some snippets. Basically, the deliverable looks at what business and funding models exist, how have they been used, what are the business models that are most suitable for developing business endeavors around the objectives of Mission Ocean, and what kind of heads up any kind of the business community can receive from us in order to create something innovative that is also sustainable. So these are just some kind of snippets. I'm not going to go into them. The report is, of course, available on the PREP4BLUE website, so please feel free to consult it. And so that said, the way that the Work Package 5 presentation is going to go is that I will talk now about one of the outcomes, which is the business interaction models, and then I will leave the floor to my colleague Torsten Kiefer from JPI Oceans to talk about the financing fact sheets, and then to Chantal Martens from Blitz to talk about the policy recommendations that we found. Starting with this was basically the very last kind of deliverable of PREP4BLUE. And what we wanted to do with this, building on all the knowledge that had been collected before in our work package, was to really look at case studies. So we really did interviews here, and we looked at, on the one hand, funding and financing institutions. You see Brinvest, you see the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, you see the to-be constituted EIT Watcher, but also at public sector actors. You see, for example, the region Blekinge, and also companies. And our interest here was to say, okay, there are business models that have been implemented and that were successful. And we found out that the key was in the collaboration between the policy, the businesses, the research, and the NGOs. What are these models and how have they worked? We made sure to focus on all of the objectives of Mission Ocean. I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that Mission Ocean has 3 specific objectives that, at least in the first pilot phase, were also assigned to specific lighthouses. And so we made sure to look at these endeavors that would support each and every of the objectives of Mission Ocean. And so just to give you some insights, I picked out 3 out of the 12 case studies. And I also have to say that thanks also to the collaboration with JPI Oceans, the original deliverable has been turned into a more bite-sized collection of nicely designed case studies, so you can find them on the PREP4BLUE website. And the first one I would like to focus on is Alaya, which is Belgium's electricity transmission system operator. And basically what they're doing is that they are building an energy island, which will take the energy from the offshore wind developments and make sure to distribute it to the grid in Belgium, but also in the UK, and I think in Denmark too. And this is already in itself technologically an innovative measure. But what is really relevant to Mission Ocean here is that when they planned the construction of the islands, they also decided to involve stakeholders, including universities and NGO, to see, okay, this is already renewable energy, so green, but how can we make this nature positive? So there was a stakeholder engagement process to also include biodiversity considerations into the building of the energy islands and aligning these also with ecosystem approach goals and nature restoration goals. So again, it might seem simple, but it took external facilitation. So there was an external independent facilitator that led this process, and also it took for an energy transmission company to look further to their specific raison d'etre and look at other considerations. So this one is exciting. The second case that I wanted to present is about Nextuna, which is a German company that is building a sustainable aquaculture recirculating system for the Atlantic bluefin tuna. And the idea here is that since this is one of the species that are most heavily fished, in order to reduce that kind of pressure on the natural ecosystem, that they would create a fully independent RAS system that would also be a floating one, so quite innovative, where basically the bluefin tuna would be hatched, grown, and farmed. And to do that, this is a very innovative technology in itself, which is being built in the Atlantic out of Spain. And they had some challenges related to larvae feeding and also infrastructural needs. And for that, they, of course, partnered with technology partners, with, again, research partners in order to understand how to make this innovative technology work best. The innovation potential of their solution is also recognized by the fact that they won the Blue Invest Award and also got funding from EIT Food. So again, it fits itself. You have innovation, and if you have innovation, you can showcase it, then you can access financing with it, and then the financing helps you move forward in your innovation. So that's how the cycle works. The last example that I wanted to present before leaving the floor to my colleagues is of a region. So this is the region Blekinge, which is situated in Sweden, and where they really use their smart specialization strategy to also align with Mission Ocean and Mission Climate. And basically what they did was to very boldly create a a local innovation ecosystem together with startups, together with technology centers, and also together with the defense sector in order to start new collaborations that would involve academia, industry, and local authorities, but also citizens. So they launched 2 pilots. One is about multi-use, which also combines defense and energy. So it's nature plus other very crucial priorities at this time, and another one which is targeting microplastics through tourism and community involvement. But the point here is also that these are just the first pilots that they developed, but I really like when they present their work because they say blacking a region on a mission. So this is just the first step of a much longer term sustainable development plan that they are building step by step with stakeholders in the region. And Blekinge is also a region which is considered peripheral or not so central in the Swedish ecosystem. So it's also a way that they're using to bring innovation, bring stakeholder, bring new life to the region. So very inspiring example. So just to conclude, these are just some recommendations that you will find in the report. And they basically point out towards collaboration in many senses. I mean, I think that for businesses is really about collaboration, and it's also about seeing what innovations are there. Also, maybe they go a little beyond the scope of the business scope of a company. For academia, it's really about aligning research with the industry. So how can we produce research that is also then applicable to what is happening on the market? For policymakers is, something we've heard many times, simplifying regulations and promote also regional or local innovation through policies and incentives. And NGOs really can help in promoting community engagement and advocating for the right developments to happen. So this is the end of my presentation. And I think as a next piece to the puzzle, I would like to leave the floor to Torsten Kiefer from JPI Oceans to present the financing fact sheets. So Torsten, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alberto. And if you stop sharing, then I can share mine. Yep. Et voilà. So, yes, so financing fact sheets, that was, well, actually, it was a task of us to look into financing models. And first, the work has been done by the people mentioned here, so at least by me, but I'm presenting today. Good. So the objective was to explore and apply funding models to support mission objectives. So the idea behind it was that the mission set out to be a particularly ambitious and also innovative model of approaching solutions. From the research and innovation all the way to solution implementation. And the question arose then whether we actually have the funding models that are appropriate to support that ambition. In particular now with a phase 2 when it comes to upscaling. And the first step to analyze that was to explore the funding models, map them, see how they are used, and then also make recommendations going forward. So the methodology we used was to build on another deliverable on business model blueprints, as was mentioned. And what we've done then here in-house was a desktop review to start with. Then we asked around the crowd intelligence of the partners in PREP4BLUE. And then also went out to stakeholders, consulted them. Although I should say that stakeholders were consulted on a basis of availability, so it's not representative or so. But yeah, so if you want answers, you go to people that respond to you, or Good. Okay. So the output of that exercise was that we identified 19 funding instruments relevant to the mission, and we then wanted to make this information useful or used, let's say, and therefore turned them into fact sheets on targeted funding models. So we combined them a bit and illustrated them. I'll show them in a second. And under these headings that are bulleted there, cascade financing, and so on. We also then compiled one fact sheet on recommendations for funders, so really feedback from stakeholders, from users, what they think is missing. Quite interesting. In the general findings was that non-profit oriented funding models totally predominate the public funding, and also then the mission funding. But in order to achieve the ambitious goals of the mission, we need to complement those by mobilizing private funders on a large scale. So that has then the potential to increase the overall pool of funding on the one hand, but also creates or introduces a flexibility in the funding models that are more targeted towards the different types of initiatives, basically along the TRL scale. And ultimately, then this has potential to support public policy goals and the mission's objectives. So to go give you a flavor of the fact sheets, I'll go through them. As I mentioned, grants and donations, to lump them together, they are by far the biggest or the most applied funding model in our world, in the mission, and we probably know a lot about it. But what we illustrate here with a kind of rowing boat is a specific character of grants and donations, that the grantees and the grantors actually work quite hand in hand iteratively through the grant process, from identifying the overall challenge to formulating a grant, to writing a proposal, to evaluating it, and then negotiating grants, and so on, all the way to evaluation of results. Okay, we probably, most of us know a lot about this model. Then on the right side, there's a specific type of grants, which is cascade financing, maybe also known a bit better, but to illustrate that with an actual cascade here, a waterfall, with the model where the European Commission, for example, puts out a bigger grant for a project, but then the project is actually tasked with redistributing the big grant in smaller chunks, very targeted and with a lot of knowledge behind it of the challenge and that community, to have a more targeted and more efficient distribution of the grants. So that's cascade financing, an interesting model. If we then go maybe a little further down the solution application line, crowdfunding is something that has received a lot of attention through one particular initiative in the ocean sphere, the ocean cleanup, where they received support of 38,000 funders with a well-marketed and good idea, and so on. So that basically, the crowdfunding means that many people give a small donation, and that amounts to a significant sum, with which you can move things. If you want to apply crowdfunding, it is important to realize that there are very different types of crowdfunding, and this is what we try to illustrate here. There are different motivations to crowdfunding, and it is good to know about that, and maybe market your crowdfunding call and target the donors accordingly. We go a bit further into a bit further into maybe the business world and private sector. There's concessional finance. This is a model where funds are provided under favorable conditions. That can be lower interest rates, it can be longer repayment periods, or lower security requirements for the grantee. In this case, right, okay. So if this financing applies to initiative, and that's why we put it on one fact sheet, blended finance can amplify the effect. Basically saying if there's already somewhere funding available, then private capital is more easily attracted because the highest risk is already taken care of by the concessional finance. And then further down the TRL line are two mechanisms: pre-commercial procurement and public procurement of innovative solutions, which basically are models where funding is applied to in a staggered way to a succession of developments from the research development to application testing, demonstrating, all the way to implementing a solution. So while a large crowd might be there in the beginning of that financing model, benefit from the funds, the successful or the continuation of funding becomes less and less throughout the process. In the end, it might be just a couple of solutions that actually receive funding for going to market. And finally, there are the models where there's a strong self-interest also from the funder side, equity finance and debt financing. So equity financing, basically selling ownership stakes. So then you have a group of shareholders who hope to get a return of investment by the initiative's success, so commercial success. The risk is then with the funder, because if there's no commercial success, then there's no return in investment. Debt financing, on the other hand, is basically loans that must be repaid with an interest. So again, the organization or individuals who offer a loan want the interest rates and gain that way. In this case, the risk is with the recipient of the funds, because the interests have to be paid and the loan has to be paid back, irrespective of the success of the initiative. On the other hand, there's no shareholder interference with the project or the initiative. So all these models are very different and have all their specific purposes, and a successful mission upscaling might want to consider all of them. So the final slide is where we put together recommendations for funding scale-up to support the mission objectives. And that's basically in conversations with stakeholders, comments that we received. And the first block is to ensure coordination and alignment of funding models and business models. Okay, that coordination can be between regional, national, and European funds. It can also be between industry and research, involve business and industry. Also in the the setting of agendas and developing the research questions for the challenges. Another large area is to a desire or a wish is to ramp up navigation through the complex funding seascape. And actually, in the conversation with stakeholders, and this was the most important point, rather than asking for more funding or more funding opportunities. The most commonly provided feedback was asking for navigation help, basically. So it's very, to everyone, it's very confusing or difficult to have an overview over the opportunities there are in terms of funding. Right, any navigation help would be welcome. And that applies to, let's say, startups and innovators who might not know how to navigate Horizon calls or European Commission work program calls. And I think we can all adhere to that. They're not easy to understand how they work. But it also applies to maybe researchers who are a little trapped in their research bubble and with a particular type of funding, which is grants, but they don't know necessarily that there's a whole area of other funding mechanisms out there that would allow them to go further beyond their low TRL developments and maybe apply their findings at a higher TRL level. Of course, there was also the feedback to establish simpler and faster. Simpler and faster opportunities, remove red tape, but also maybe develop fast-track support schemes for smaller groups, because it is true that we are often locked in our 3-year project types, and probably it would be good for the mission to develop more flexibility in granting periods. And finally, a wish to explore innovative funding models. These can be more profit-oriented funding models, such as blue bonds, so loans given out for blue projects, or to discover results-based funding, and that can be something like prizes, competitions, hackathons, or so, where funding is provided for a winner that provides the best solution and outcome.
Thanks, yeah, so I'm a bit aware of time because we have one more presenter.
Right. Yeah.
But thanks so much. Very, very interesting work. So I would like to now leave the floor to Chantal from Bliss. Chantal, are you with us? Yes, I see you. Chantal, feel free to share your presentation, your 10 minutes, take us through the policy developments.
Yes. Okay. It should be the presentation. I will just go into presenter mode. Is this clear for everybody, the presenter mode now?
No, we have
yes.
PPT.
Sorry?
We have your PPT, but not the presenter mode.
I'll just stop share and try again. That is strange. Does it work now?
No, but I think, I mean, we can see the slides if you just...
You can see the slides. What I will do is I will go through the slides because then it would take too much time of us, if that's okay for you to do it that way. Apologies for that. Still, after so much shared meetings, there are still hiccups.
Well, yes, good morning. My name is Chantal Martens. I'm with the Flemish Marine Institute, and so very happy to be here today and share with you the work that we have done together with our partners on the regulatory barriers and enablers affecting mission, ocean and waters, and more specifically, the innovative solutions that are being developed. So if you look at the map, then you can already see it's a map that we made at the beginning of the project, so it would actually benefit from an update. It's an overview of the innovation actions and the topics that were discussed in those innovation actions in the first wave of innovation actions. And so the idea is indeed that during Mission Oceans that we will have new transformative solutions that will be tested, piloted, developed both for ecosystem restoration, pollution reduction, development of circular and carbon neutral blue economy, etc. And from past projects, we have already learned that maritime laws and regulations, they are often built one sector at a time. So that makes it harder to develop multi-use ocean projects. And that is specifically the types of things that we are going through. Is my screen still okay? Because I'm having a very strange view now. Can everybody see the slides?
We see the slides. They're relatively small.
Yeah, apologies. I'm working on a landed computer, but in any case, so as I said, from past projects, we already have seen that these laws, they build one sector at a time. So if you want to go multi-use, then you might run into some barriers. And also new uses, for example, developing shared activities in wind farms. From previous projects, we have already learned that there's still many legal questions that remain unanswered. Unclear legislation, sometimes unrelated tasks, make it also difficult to attract investors, was discussed by previous colleagues already. And also for new industries, for example, microalgae farming or small-scale water treatment technologies, rules can be complex and can slow down innovation. So our goal was to really identify, looking at what are, in terms of policy and regulation, enablers and barriers, and not only look at to identify them, but also along the way share information, share good practices, so that we can really better support innovators on the ground. So we approached this first by looking at existing policies and regulations. We discussed with experts and stakeholders what they saw as enablers and obstacles. And then finally, we worked again with those same groups to explore possible solutions and to share, again, knowledge and good examples. So if you look at the methodology, how did we go about this? Well, we followed basically a structured two-step approach. First, we went top-down. We used the top-down method, mapping all relevant policies and regulations that could impact the deployment of those innovative solutions. And then we moved to a bottom-up assessment where we started gathering real-world insights on barriers and enablers, and we did that through a series of surveys and also one-on-one interviews. And those interviews really gave us a clear picture of what innovators actually are facing while doing their work. The interviewees, you can see the graph on the right-hand side, were really a cross-section of innovators, policymakers, researchers from across all Lighthouse houses. So this really offered us the opportunity to collect case studies from across the different Lighthouse regions, and again, share knowledge. So then finally, we organized workshops, again, bringing together policymakers, innovators, researchers, industry players to reflect on the information gathered, share it with each other, and also discuss practical ways forward. If we look at the first step, we took the policy analysis. We reviewed a total of 77 EU documents, and through the interviews, we collected further examples, for example, of local legislations that are connected to mission objectives, and that could be an inspiration to others, and we brought those together in a heat map. And so to maintain a clear link to the overarching mission framework, the heat map analysis was carried out, well, for the general Lighthouse objectives, and then per region also to specific topics. The idea is that this document is a living document, that it can still be added, further topics can be added to that, but it will give users sort of general overview of how policies connect to the broad mission goals, and still allowing them the possibility to later link them to specific Lighthouse teams. Now, this heat map served both as a starting point for the work that we then did in the workshop and the interviews, but it's also a standalone result that can be used as a sort of reference on policies and regulations that are relevant. Now, I'm going to go to what came out of the interviews and the analysis. And so the first thing is how policy and regulations can enable innovation. And based on the information on the interviews and the discussions in the workshop, I will give a few examples. I will not go through them. You can all read them in the deliverable 5.3 that's available through the website. Deliverable also gives a lot more case studies, examples of local legislations that have worked very well, for example, in promoting innovation, and that could, for example, serve as an inspiration. But for example, policies can, and it's already been mentioned by the colleagues before as well, can catalyze investment and innovation. A clear example, for example, is the stricter limits that have been imposed on sulfur contents in ship fuels that triggered then rapid development of clean shipping technologies. Another explanation or another way of policy regulation that can help is that they can also foster cooperation across borders. An example from that is, for example, the Joint Declaration on the Protection of the Wadden Sea Area, where there was really a coordinated action, and it says illustrated what that coordinated action can achieve far more than isolated efforts. Another last example, perhaps, is the green taxonomy, where these policies also can guide sustainable investments, giving industries a certainty that they can invest in green energy projects, and as such also facilitating the innovation and the rollout of innovative projects. So that is in terms of enablers. We also got a lot of feedback and comments on obstacles or barriers. As I said before, the comment came that that's obviously legislation sometimes focuses very much on one sector, whereas more and more the work that is being done is cross-sectoral. One of the different policies, for example, also can have conflicting goals. For example, on the Danube River, for example, the flood protection and fish migration and the hydropower development all compete for priority, where there is really a contradiction between policies and no clear hierarchy, leaving a sort of void for innovators to roll out their developments. Also a comment that came is that some rules are not always adapted to the status of marine innovation, that there is a misfit of regulations. An example given there was the Animal Welfare Directive, which treats fish larvae the same as rodents, that creating unnecessary burdens for marine research. And also one that came up is sometimes poor communication. If you have an early and open dialogue, example was given, for example, of Ireland's offshore energy grid project, that can really improve outcomes. But also feedback that we got is what is still too often missing. Now, if we have barriers and we have also solutions, we also discussed recommendations and what would be a good way forward and what could we learn from one another in that. And again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but a few things that came up was creating low barrier testing zones, harmonized across member states, so as such you can streamline testing and licensing. That was perceived as a big need by the innovators. Also, in order to support small innovators, moving beyond models that favor only large-scale operators, so adjust tax and cost systems for what that can done. Also, incorporate local context into policymaking, so ensuring that local and regional needs are fully considered. In summary, there you go. So in summary, what is in the deliverable 5.3 and what is the work developed is we aimed to offer some useful insights and links between innovation developed within Mission Ocean, policy and regulations, and we combined top-down policy analysis with bottom-up input from stakeholders. We've tried to map the key barriers and enablers that need to be addressed to help the mission further succeed. Also, through bringing together stakeholders and experts and by offering practical examples, we hope to have offered some pathways that can inspire and inform future actions. We particularly saw that those workshops that we had throughout this process have shown the value of bringing together different stakeholders, not only to get the information you get from the workshop, but also the communication between the different stakeholders was very often perceived as very interesting. And so finally, what I have here for you is what we call the 5 commandments, and we adapted the formatting accordingly to give it the gravitas it needs, is where we have summarized at the end of our work the main messages clean and concisely so that it can be shared easily and hopefully inspire the next steps forward. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Chantal. Okay, so we are at the end of this session. I saw some questions that we answered. Are there any other questions that you want to raise? We have like a few minutes and then we're going on coffee break and we'll then go to the 2 final sessions. So I don't see any hands raised for the moment. There's one. Sorry, I cannot see who has raised his hand.
It's me. Sorry. No, I just wanted to speak to maybe Dave Wall's comment there about funding mechanisms needed for citizen science to kind of better integrate citizen science formally and kind of in a more supported way into this kind of work. So I think the creation of national citizen science funding hubs is a fantastic idea. In the meantime, like Thorsten was saying, I think one thing that we have, like coming out of phase 1 of the mission and entering phase 2, one thing that's been done very well is kind of that professionalized mission community has really been networked and mobilized towards the mission. But like a missing piece of the puzzle is definitely getting out and down in a kind of a wide and meaningful sense to integrate that like the really good grassroots work that is always going on into the mission and aligning with the mission and connecting it, I suppose, in kind of a formal way to the Horizon Europe community. So I think in phase 2, more use of that cascade funding stipulation, maybe in calls, in Mission Ocean calls and by Mission Ocean projects, so that there's constantly smaller scale funding, you know, like grants up to €20,000 that are well suited to grassroots on the ground groups all around Europe to kind of constantly give those groups that, you know, kind of have existed long before the mission a sense of that there's value coming from the mission, that they should look to Mission Ocean projects and to Horizon Europe yearly to see what kind of funding is coming to suitable to them, and that would really connect the mission to those groups on the ground in a kind of a meaningful sense as well. So I definitely second that those kind of different styles of funding would be very good to support that integration with citizen science.
Thanks, Dave, for that. I don't know if anybody wants to react on that. No, okay. So it's now time for our coffee break or weather break or tea, whatever you're drinking. We'll reconvene at 11:25. So that's in 10 minutes. For everybody, I'm going to put a message in the chat. But back in 10 minutes for everybody. So for the 2 last sessions and then the Q&A, we have the session on communication and storytelling and then the session on recommendations.
So welcome everybody. I'm going to be talking about work package 2, which was all centered around creating a narrative and communications for the mission. And when I say that, I don't mean communications for PREP4BLUE, I mean communications for the mission. And so our objectives, goals, and outcomes all really revolved around developing communication tools, including things like a communication strategy, a narrative guide, social media channels, and those kinds of things to help build up citizen engagement, exposure to, and knowledge of the mission. And then, of course, as was the case with PREP4BLUE, help prepare the forthcoming CSAs and then other projects as they joined. Our timeline and our tasks revolved around those things: the narrative, the strategy, a social media campaign. And then we were also tasked with creating a virtual space or a website. We call it a web experience, and doing some physical events, physical spaces over the course of the 3 years. Our final deliverable is actually a SWOT analysis of everything that we've completed. So I'll talk more in depth about these as the time goes on, but just to give you a snapshot of everything that we completed, we developed a narrative guide. It was the first thing that we put together, and then a communication strategy. And as time went on, we realized there were some challenges that were facing us. One, the most important being that a lot of the things that we thought we were going to have to do when we wrote our work package description the European Commission had already done when we started the project. And so our focus shifted a bit. And we also learned that while they had done the branding, they weren't really able to communicate all of the rules and enforcement and provide the graphics to all of the partners in an efficient way due to some legal restrictions with the way they are allowed to communicate with projects. And we also realized that we weren't privy to important information we needed to communicate with the onboarding projects and other CSAs because the European Commission refused to share information with us. And so it became very clear that we needed to establish a working group to work around those issues and so that people could communicate with each other and get the information they needed, not only from us, but also from the European Commission, and so that all the partners could actually get to know each other in a quick, efficient way, because that information wasn't being shared in an efficient way. So we created something called the Communications Collaborative, which is a working group for everybody who does communications for their official Mission Ocean project. We also developed the website, or the web experience as we call it, at missionoceanwaters.eu. And I'll talk more about that because that has become a primary platform for actual storytelling, which is the focus of this little session. Of course, we created 7 social media channels, which are very active, 4 more active than the 7, but we have 7. And then along with the Communications Collaborative, it became very obvious that we needed a place to hold and host information, tools, resources, links, all of the branding information provided by the European Commission, and then other information that partners wanted to share. So we created a Trello board. And then to go along with the Trello board, after that was created, the European Commission asked us to create a PDF, which duplicated the Trello board and basically gave an overview of all the communication tools and resources that were created, so that as the new partners came on board, they would have access to information about what was out there for them to help them in their digital media and storytelling efforts. And then finally, as a little bonus, our contractor decided to create a little digital academy. This was meant to be exclusive for people who signed the charter, and also for our Comms Collab partners to learn more about social media. It provided access to training videos, tutorials, checklists, things that would help monitor social media accounts and enhance storytelling via those platforms. So we've had a lot of interaction with projects and stakeholders because that was part of what we were tasked with doing. This included attending many events, communicating aspects of the mission via social media and the web, promoting other partners, events, calls, activities on our channels, working with the European Commission directly to obtain and distribute the materials that were relevant for all of the partners. Again, that's branded materials, and also to help ensure that there was brand compliance. This was a real issue in the beginning of the project, because while they would give us a document or give us some graphics, it wasn't quite clear how to use those, what could or couldn't be done. Some rules changed over the course of the first year and a half of the project, especially around image copyright and use. And so we really had to work through those issues with the European Commission directly, and help to support the CSAs and the projects with getting materials that they needed, things for like posters, banners, stuff for presentations, that kind of stuff. And of course, we wanted to ensure access to those materials, promote and cover events. And then part of that Comms Collab was to actually provide a direct platform to the EC from the partners, so that they could actually reach them and get direct answers from them when there were questions. And then, as many of you know, the mission implementation platform was a tender that was brought on, gosh, I don't know, what was it, 6 months, a year into the project. There was a lot of concern about overlap and duplicating efforts and reinventing the wheel, maybe some competition. In the end, for us, it ended up working out really well, working with them to collaborate on things and help each other and share information. and they become instrumental in taking over the communications group, as well as creating the help desk and all the platforms and tools that they created. And moving forward, those platforms will be used to host a lot of the information and tools that we created. So that's been a very great collaboration. Our monthly communications collaborative meetings, this says 50, but they're now upwards of 60, 70 project partners attending. And while we continued to regularly get called by the EC to participate in more meetings and events, just due to budget constraints this past year, that's kind of come to a stop, because we ended up attending a lot more events than were ever anticipated to basically cover them for social media and do social media campaigns for them. So I've talked with you already a bit about the challenges, you know, that the things had shifted when we realized the European Commission had done a lot of the work that we said we were going to do. You know, there's rules in place that sort of hinder the kind of communication that needs to happen between something like the mission, you know, which is not just a project, it's really a mission with the European Commission, overlapping tasks with the MIP, which in the end didn't end up being a problem for us, but I know there was concern in the beginning and we really had to work through that. Something else that we've come across is everybody's got a website, and, you know, it makes it a little bit difficult when you're figuring out who to follow or where to go for information. And something else that we discovered was that the European Commission, there's some ambiguity about whether they are allowed or are not allowed to have social media channels for projects. Technically, they're only supposed to have them for their different departments, like DG Mare. But we are working on a social media legacy plan now, and it seems like they might be able to take over our social media channels for the mission and actually own them, but we haven't got final word on that yet. And then, of course, we were tasked with doing events that were meant to reach the public, but just in terms of budget and scope and competing with other timelines and other events, this didn't work out the way that we had expected necessarily. So if you're interested in the Communications Collaborative, again, this group is specifically for communications leadership on each of the projects. So anybody who's on an official Mission Ocean project is welcome to join, but they should be the people who are working specifically in communications. We meet once a month, the first Wednesday of the month. There's an ongoing open agenda that goes all the way back to the first meetings. It's the 4 CSAs, PREP4BLUE, and the MIP have all taken turns leading each meeting. And it goes that way every month. And everyone's welcome to add to the agenda and speak during the 1 hour. And these meetings have proven very helpful in terms of sharing open calls, finding out about new projects, learning about what's happening, getting questions answered from the European Commission, making sure everyone has the right resources and tools for their storytelling, for their social media, for the documents, for the presentations, for the roll-ups, the posters, the banners, everything that they need. So if you are currently in a project and you're not attending these meetings, I highly encourage you to join. You can just email the Mission Implementation Platform to get the information. The Trello board, as I mentioned earlier, this is just a quick snapshot of it. It hosts everything from an Excel spreadsheet of all the social media accounts that we're aware of for official projects and related projects, to official graphics that have been sent to us by the European Commission, to links to important PDFs, stuff on citizen engagement. If it's been provided to us, it's hosted on this Trello board. This is public, anybody can access it, but it's really meant for all of the project partners to go there and find tools and resources to use. This new second column is the Digital Academy. I mentioned the Digital Academy a while ago. This was something that was created as a bonus for charter signatories, but as PREP4BLUE winds down, the site that the Digital Academy is hosted on is not going to be paid for anymore. So I've migrated all of the information from the Digital Academy to the Trello board. And so now anybody can access that information. And all of this information that's on the Trello board is being migrated by the mission implementation platform to their various resources, their help desk, their private folders, their public folders. All of this information will be taken over by them as PREP4BLUE sunsets. So it won't be lost. This Trello board will also continue to live. It just won't be updated moving forward because the MIP will take that on. Quickly, our 7 social media channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Pinterest, for us Americans who love it, TikTok. We have right now a total of 9,496 followers across all 7 platforms. What's interesting, and that most of you are aware of, is that with all of the political controversy surrounding X and Elon Musk, we've been heavily encouraged to drop X and create a Blue Sky account. However, when I spoke with the MIP about managing a Blue Sky account and getting rid of our X, they haven't received official instruction from the European Commission on whether they can manage a Blue Sky account. And right now they have limited access to these channels. Technically, I own these channels. And we're working on the transition when PREP4BLUE ends for them to take them over. And I'll continue to maintain legal ownership of them as time goes on, as long as we're part of another Mission Ocean project. But eventually the goal is to get these to the MIP and back actually to the European Commission. But there's some legal gray area there that we have to work through. Something that's interesting to note. And so that, anyway, that's a long way of saying that's why we're not off X, and that's why we haven't created a Blue Sky. But that doesn't mean that it won't happen in the future. What is interesting is that since the political fallout with X, our LinkedIn has exploded. Like I said, we have more than 5,000 followers on LinkedIn now, and I would say probably 3,000 of those have grown in the last 6 months to a year. It's really just, that's where everyone's at right now. And that's where we're starting to do the majority of our posting. Our demographic is pretty evenly spread on Facebook between men and women. That was just a little interesting thing that I found. And just to illustrate, we've made over 2,300 posts just on X. So we're very active at resharing our project partners' calls, activities, events. If people are allowed to email me directly to help share their stories and get the word out about things, they can also email the MIP, who also has access to 4 of the channels and can reshare as well. So the web experience, this is one of the things that we're most proud of and where the majority of our budget went. It's not just a website. For those who haven't been, I really encourage you to go. It's missionoceanwaters.eu, and it's full of like really captivating drone footage. There's really neat ways that the website plays and interacts with the user in terms of, if you click on a little button, an icon, it'll zoom you through certain areas where we filmed. We filmed across all 4 Lighthouse areas. We've got really great interviews with every group, from e-cops and young scientists to people from the European Commission and thought leaders and people in private industry as well. And it's really great to take some time and explore the experience, because it really is an experience. And it's not like other European Commission or other project websites, which just basically, talk about what they're doing and maybe exploit some results or something. This is really to learn about the mission and explore the mission and hear from mission people who are working in the different lighthouse areas. And it will continue to live on, and it will, Stefan mentioned yesterday that it will get updated. It is linked from the Mission Ocean portal, so you can find a link to it from there. And it was also featured in some news articles that have been done. So with respect to events and storytelling, so we were tasked with creating some events And we've done a couple different things. And one of the ones that we're most proud of is VCOP Day, and that's Virtual Early Career Ocean Professional Day. And the first one was before actually we were part of this project. So the second one that we did was VCOP Days 2024. And this coincided with the UN event in Barcelona. And what we had was essentially like news reporters, ECOPs on the ground, reporting from Barcelona live, that was interspersed with online sessions hosted by and for ECOPs. And it was spread over 3 days there. And we had over 100 program contributions, including about the mission and interviewing all kinds of people from the event there, including mission folks. This was a highly successful event. It's being duplicated again this year in Nice, and will be our third annual VCOP Day. We're also providing support to a major art exhibition in conjunction with the Venice Biennale, with artists in residence. And basically we made a financial contribution. This will happen after PREP4BLUE has ended, but it's still something that is in support of the mission and that we've provided as part of our task for supporting events. So something that we've done with respect to analyzing whether our communication tools and resources have been effective is we created a survey that we've sent to everyone who's a member in the Communications Collaborative, and to basically get their feedback on what tools and resources they used and how they felt about them, so that we can make recommendations in our final SWOT analysis, which will be submitted to the European Commission to tell them what we feel like worked and what we feel like didn't work, and what we feel like would be good strategies moving forward in the future to better help engage the public, help our partners get the tools and resources they need for their storytelling, and to basically help everyone collaborate in efficient ways. We've also recontracted with Joanne from the Digital Training Institute to do a final report on all the social media channels, and compile the statistics and let us know what's working there and what's not working there. And like I said, we can already see that LinkedIn seems to be where everyone is going now, and moving off of X, possibly onto Blue Sky. Still Facebook and Instagram, but it seems like not as much. And again, those will be in our final SWOT analysis. Just some final thoughts. I know the next session is supposed to be on recommendations, but I'm going to have to jump off. And so I just wanted to, these are just 6 highlights that sort of illustrate what we've learned in all of the different ways we've tried to help facilitate better storytelling or provide communication tools and resources. And one of the things that I think is, it's really been great having the MIP. And I really think we could have a common core communication team that wouldn't just be like one CSA or a couple of CSAs, but like a real core team dedicated to facilitating communication and reaching the public, people that are paid specifically to just focus on that. And I also think this kind of communications collaborative group, everybody's invited and we've had great attendance, which is excellent. But I almost kind of think that it should be anybody who's joining the mission, someone from communications should be expected to attend, if not that group meeting, some kind of group meeting monthly, specifically devoted to communication, so that everybody's on the same page, everyone's getting the same information, everyone knows what to share, and then can take those back to their individual project teams. I also think that there should be some common instruction for Mission Ocean project partners to be on the same social media platforms, at least a common shared 3. even if it's just sort of a directive, all new Mission Ocean project partners should have a LinkedIn, should have an Instagram, should have a Blue Sky or a YouTube or something to that effect, so that all of the partners can follow all of the partners on the same platforms and get the same information. It's one more avenue for sharing. Because now, we have a running Excel spreadsheet of all the project partners, and some people are only on LinkedIn, and some people are only on X, and some people are on Facebook and Instagram, but not on the others. And so partners have a tendency to miss each other with their messaging, because if someone's not on LinkedIn, then they're not getting all of the posts from the majority of followers. And, the same can be said, obviously, for X at this point. So as I said earlier, there's lots of websites. Every project has their own website. Every project has their own social media. And of course, not all of the partners can go to all of the websites. They don't know about all of the websites. They don't know about all of the social media sites. And I'm kind of thinking, for something as large as the mission, maybe there should be one website, and everybody can have their own page on one website, one centralized, real one-stop shop, one real repository where everyone can house some kind of information, even if it's just one page for a project to redirect off to their own website. But that way people wouldn't be looking and searching for different organizations, sites, and information. They could find everything about the mission, all project partners, all news, all information, all events, all that kind of stuff on one centralized website. Who would house that? I'm not sure. But I just think that would be a more efficient way to centralize information. And then, as I said, we're real happy with the work that we've done with the MIP and the collaboration there. I'm not quite sure. I know they end in December 27, but whatever the plan is for the future, I think having that kind of organization is great at helping facilitate and getting a lot of stuff done that the individual projects can't do because they're tasked with other items. And as far as reaching the public and events, this was something that is so important. And, we try to do the best we could with the website and the social media and campaigns that we ran. We did a very specialized focus campaign on youth, and we had 4 mobile journalists that captured different content from their Lighthouse areas that we posted across social media to spotlight them, to spotlight their work, to get a different perspective. And of course, we've had our events. But if we really want to reach the public on like a David Attenborough type scale, then I think we need a David Attenborough publicity and type budget to match it. I know that the mission has been doing a really good job in reaching the project partners and reaching out that way. But from a storytelling perspective, I feel like we could be doing a lot more in terms of doing bigger, bolder, more mass marketing movie type campaigns to maybe spotlight more on what the mission is and what everyone's doing that's so great, because there are so many good projects out there. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and if anyone has any questions or comments.
Thanks, Annie, for your presentation. There was a question that we've answered it. It was about the Digital Academy. For the others, I haven't seen any. Is there a hand raised? Not yet. If you have a question for Wendy, it's no, because after at the Q&A, she may not be there due to time difference. Otherwise, if you have a question coming up, we can then share it later on with her. Okay, Wendy, I think seems to be good.
Yeah, if anybody's looking for any of the information that I presented, just go to the Trello board. You can find everything there.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so now let's move to the next session, which is on recommendation. I will have to share this. And perfect. Okay, so I hope you had a lot of interesting information coming through for you. Now, in terms of recommendations for the next phase of the mission, so some of the information you will see passing, you will have seen it in the previous session. It's just a reminder of some of the information given, and others may be a bit more new. In terms of recommendation, I've split this presentation mainly in two. The recommendations of the CSAs and the recommendation is more PREP4BLUE oriented. So as you remember in the beginning of the presentation, beginning of the day, sorry, I show you the mission ecosystem, that there was 5 Lighthouse CSAs with PREP4BLUE, the overarching one, and 4 Lighthouse CSAs. We've worked together on a CSA legacy document, a bit on the lessons learned of the first phase of the mission and our experience. It's available online, so if you want to go and have a read, you can go ahead. I'm just going to jump on 2 points of them. The one on the connectivity with the mission ecosystem and a global recommendation set also. For the connectivity with the mission ecosystem, one of the recommendations, what is currently existing, we have 6 different working groups. Wendy told you about the communication collaborative one, which is open to all. We have also a citizen engagement collaborative, a help desk working group, and the monitoring indicators. We also have 2 working groups with the CSAs and the MIP. These working groups have really brought a lot of extra additional information and exchanges also. So we would recommend to keep them ongoing if possible for the next phase of the mission. The communication collaborative is still ongoing. It's in the hands of the MIP. The citizen engagement collaborative, I think it's under discussion. And the help desk working group will have to be discussed with the MIP also. And the monitoring indicators is currently in the hands of the Lighthouse CSAs. In terms of global recommendation that we're giving by the CSAs, I'm not going to go into details, but we gave some recommendation on the stakeholder engagement with the experience we had on the national hubs, the mission arena, the weekly hours, a blue biomatch. Some recommendation on the citizen engagement and communication. You already saw some from Wendy. And then on business models, funding and inter-regional funding. From these, some of them came from PREP4BLUE, and I will share them a bit more in detail. We'll have more information about the citizen engagement recommendation, the communication, and then the business and funding. As you can see here, also latest information, some of these elements are in another color. This means that this information isn't yet in the current CSA legacy document, but there is a second round that is ongoing, and it should be onboarded in the second version of the CSA legacy document. Let's move on now to the PREP4BLUE recommendations, more in terms of governance here. So I've split it mainly in 3 types of recommendations. So we have the mission governance, the regional national governance, and the international governance, at least the links with the international level. In terms of the mission governance, as I told you before, there are existing transversal working groups on key topics. So the existing one should go on. But it may be of interest also to develop new working groups on other key topics, so mainly on the solutions and knowledge outputs, another on the databases, another to make a link with the UN Ecological Restoration Decade, and also a cross-mission working group to follow up on the TRANI project that ended last year. In terms of mission governance also, we stress the importance also of the sea basin focused because as mentioned by Dave before also, each of the region has its cultural and societal particularities. So it needs to
kept on going, let's say this. And also we did some pilot stakeholder assemblies at regional levels with the Lighthouse CSAs. And it seems to be something that is really interesting for the stakeholders also, because it's like 1 or 2 main events on the year. It's reduced the stakeholder fatigue, and it can bring together all people from the same region. Some of the outcomes could be a regional roadmap for the region where the stakeholder assemblies happens. The stakeholder assemblies can take different forms. So we have the mission arenas, for example, in Bonus. We have living labs, but we also have national regional hubs. There is also more streamlined and harmonized mission roadmap between the EC DGs. So this has been addressed recently at the mission forum. We see the keen interest of the mission as the action aspect of the Ocean Pact. In terms of the national hubs, so we have a guide that's available on PREP4BLUE that address the existing national hubs. We can see here 9, but the Danube River has 4 different living labs also. These are the existing ones. And in terms of recommendations, so we did an analysis of the existing transnational hubs, what it represented, what were the functions, what are the existing ones, and also case studies. And then we gave some recommendations on how to establish a transnational hub. So the most important element is to identify key stakeholders, but also really important to establish right governance structure and have linkages with national and regional or local authorities, depending on the scope of the hub also. And there's also a section on lessons learned from other missions hubs. In terms of the international governance, one of the successful elements of PREP4BLUE is the Trans-Ocean Working Group. So it's headed under it's an Euro-Marine Working Group, working specifically on transoceanic, transversal, and transformative international ocean programs. They were also spearheading part of the side events on citizen and stakeholder engagement at the UN Ocean Decade also. And they have co-authored a paper on the collaborative bottom-up trust mission. So they discussed the harmony with nature and Green Deal. One of the recommendation they came up was the aspect of trust mission. So instead of having missions coming from the top down, more bottom up and more with linkages directly and effective co-creation. I will let you read it. It's under review at the Network Portfolio Journal, but you can already access the first draft on the Zenodo one. In terms of citizen and stakeholder engagement, you saw some of the elements also discussed by Dave before and Messi. For the citizen engagement, there was the issue of going beyond the core stakeholder groups, because we have a tendency to speak like in an echo chamber. So most of the time, a lot of the same people we see. We have really interesting on-the-ground citizen science initiatives and also initiatives by various community, but they're not always aware of the mission also, the mission Ocean. One of the recommendations is to have more financial support to third parties, so the famous cascade fundings, in order to have smaller grants for groups, communities, citizen science initiatives that are really engaged on the ground, that are pre-existing, and it's to help them keep ongoing. Then we have the stakeholder engagement recommendations. So we need to have a customized communication strategy. We need to strengthen the ocean literacy in Europe. You may be aware, but we have EU for Ocean, for example, and also a big group of ocean literacy that is growing in the mission community also. We need to foster public-private research collaboration, involve the stakeholders from the beginning, not just when we need them. We should need them from the start of every initiative we have. We need to provide tangible incentives also for engagement, on the one hand, avoid stakeholder fatigue, but also
the impression of people that they're giving away time for free and there's nothing behind. Again, the funding for underground initiatives and also have a more collaborative governance. In terms of funding, so that was mentioned by Torsten this morning. So for the funders, the main recommendation would be to ensure coordination and alignment of the funding models and business models, but also help the people that need funds to navigate the complex funding landscape, because you have fundings all over, but people and stakeholders are really lost sometimes. They don't know where to go and which door to knock on. And also to establish simpler and faster opportunities and explore innovative funding models. In terms of regulatory barriers and enablers, this one's one of the results also of PREP4BLUE. You can see it in level 5.3. So there's recommendation in terms of the agenda setting and thematic focus. We would need to allow faster access to testing and licensing, favor long-term innovation through adjusted cost and tax system, redefinition of the profits, and improve ways in which local context can be included. In terms of policy creation, we need carefulness in writing new policy, and easier language to understand initiative policies, as well as clear definition. And in terms of implementation and adoption, adequate implementation of existing regulation and communicate the hindering factors that limit development of business and initiatives. You may have seen it on Chantal's presentation. So they established the 5 comments on the regulatory recommendation. It's a bit repetition of what I said before, but I like this presentation. It's really straight to the point also. So you have the fast access to testing and licensing, improve ways for the local context to be included, adequate implementation, and so on. In terms of communication, Wendy mentioned it quite a lot already, so I'm not going to go maybe in too much detail. We need to have the communication collaborative working group that's kept alive and mandatory. We have a lot of people attending, and lots of information are shared, and you may need to expand the role of the Comms Collab to include them be able to write guidelines for social media, website, and so on. For the social media channels and campaigns, as you've seen with X and the changing political climate, we would need each of the projects to have an account on various platforms, at least 2, if not 3 different platforms, in order to assure cross information between the different projects. Currently, LinkedIn seems to be the major hub, but that can still evolve also. There is also the issue of the multiple project website. So each project, as you may have seen in the beginning of today, I show you a slide with the logos of all the projects. We have more than 60 projects, mission projects ongoing, and each one of this project has its own website. So sometimes it's a bit hard to find the information in one easy and common place. So maybe have a common website. So maybe expand on the tasks of the MIPOcean so that we can bring in maybe more information of each of the individual websites. Okay, that's mainly it, I think. Then in terms of knowledge transfer, that was something that was discussed yesterday also internally. It's we've seen, so we have the Wavelinks platform with the solutions tab with the descriptions of various solution knowledge outputs of interest for the mission, their description, their stakeholder mapping, and an eventual impact pathway. And this is something that is really interesting because some people involved in projects, when we speak to them about like, what's your impact pathway of your solution? How do you go beyond your solution? They don't really have, we're going to say, guideline or a process of how to move further. So we've done that in PREP4BLUE, and the wavelengths also can help to lead by example. So people that have more or less the same type of solution or about the same objective can go have a look how other solutions are integrated in the landscape and how they plan to have their impact also. So it's all also about sharing the successful regional strategies and the regional successes also. Again, providing training also to less experienced regions and evaluate and adapt knowledge sharing based on feedback and impact. Finally, I told you about the multiplicity of various websites, but we also have a multiplicity of platforms, and it cannot always be easy to navigate. So one of the solution or recommendation of PREP4BLUE would be to have like 3 main platforms for information on the mission. One that's hosting the resources, the knowledge outputs that could be wavelengths. Another more on the monitoring of the mission evolution, which could be the MeepOcean platform. And one on measuring the impact of the different solutions and the impact of the projects also, and how we are reaching the targets of the mission. And that's it on my side. I hope it was interesting. I need to close this and try to find them back, guys. Okay.
Cécile.
Thank you.
We have been doing a lot of talking from our side, so I guess this is the moment where we would like to open up the floor to all participants. Being here today, it's one of the rare occasions we can actually exchange with you directly, and we would like to hear from you. Of course, we can take some time for questions. We did prepare a very small slide just to get the ball rolling on the discussion. We have at least 30 minutes of ahead of us. So first of all, if anyone wants to take the floor until we set up everything for Slido, please go ahead. Our work package leads are here. Our task leads are here. The key players of PREP4BLUE are at your reach. So we welcome the dialogue, the open dialogue.
Not everyone at the same time.
Maybe some of the work package leads would like to give a few words. No? Then let's get the ball rolling with the Slido. I will be sharing here my screen. Just give me a small second. You already have a small link. It would be great to collect this feedback with you. So normally you should be able to see it, right?
Yes.
Yes, super. So we would like to hear if from everything we have been presenting today, after 3 years of hard work, of a landscape constantly changing and a very ambitious mission, we are very proud to have been participating to our own extent of capacities. Has our main outcomes successfully answered your expectations as project beneficiaries, as participants of the mission in one way or the other? I can see, yes, thank you. I can see some people typing, which is great. With a question mark, with an yes, and presentation. Super, thank you. That's so great to hear. Thank you so much. I leave you writing, and the poll will be still open, and maybe we can have a look on the next question. It's so great to have positive feedback. There is not an easy way for national marine projects, groups, and initiatives to integrate into Mission Ocean. Yeah, it's not an easy way yet. I guess we are all maturing on how to approach the mission. So if you have been already working hands-on with some of the knowledge that PREP4BLUE has produced, could you share some of your experience? Or if you have not been using our tools, how will they be useful to you? We have seen tools for communication. We have seen tools for knowledge transfer and sharing. We have seen tools for navigating the funding landscape. We have seen tools for the regulatory landscape as well. We have seen citizen science and stakeholder guidelines. Maybe some of them are echoing your work more than others.
For the person, if you want to discuss it, that thought about visualize pathways to impact, have you already used our module for one of your own solutions or for existing solutions already on our wavelengths database?
Oh, that's great to also see that Agora is actively using. It's great to have a live feedback. Of course, we will open up the discussion, but having it written is great for us. And I will jump to the next question until you finish writing. I will keep it open though. So as project beneficiaries or as people involved in the mission, what your recommendation would be for the next phase, for the second phase of the mission? We are ending up soon, the first phase, and then we are heading on to really scale up. Would you have some direct recommendation that PREP4BLUE can bring up to the Commission so we can work as a linkage there, and then transferring your opinions? That would be great. More robust connections between mission governance and individual projects. Mm-hmm. We have been touching upon that, but it would be great to pick up on that and discuss more on it today. Assure the continued maintenance and development of existing online resources. better integration of the very many existing initiatives and projects. It's quite impressive when we see the slide with all the 66 projects at the moment, and more of them are coming at the national mission ocean, and then we need to bring it down to the regions and to the national level. To use the existing tools and resources than developing new ones. This is very valuable feedback. Undertake the transfer activities, the knowledge management methodologies offered to foster the impact. I will leave the slide open so you can keep on writing in, but then while we are here touching upon all these topics, maybe we can bring it in on a live discussion.
Yes. So I saw some interest about the impact pathway. So those of them that wrote about it and the interest they had, could you maybe tell us what you find the most interesting in it, and if you already have been able to use it and your experience of it? If nobody takes the floor, I'm going to designate a voluntary.
See all of you. Okay, it doesn't seem so. Okay, we are quite shy this morning. Let's pick up maybe on the practical funding for citizen science project. David commented on that. There has been already a small discussion, and then also Massimiliani Uno mentioned how it would be important to have a specific fund and also a specific hub for stakeholder engagement, and that would be something we can transfer to the second phase of the mission.
Yes, Dave, wow, go ahead.
Right, since I started this trouble, I suppose I better comment on it. Yes, I suppose it's a comment. You'll have seen from your own feedback that one of the main call-outs from stakeholders is funding, and that's particularly so in the case of citizen science, where a lot of our long-term data sets are citizen science generated. That's because citizen science maybe is a bit cheaper. It lends itself to long-term collection of long-term data sets, and yet we have many, many projects that struggle year to year to keep going. It would require very small amounts of money in many cases. You're talking about 5,000 or less in some cases to maintain the ongoing flow of data in through these projects. Our own thinking on this is it would be nice across Europe to see a designated national hub responsible or tasked with disseminating cascading funding from the central funding source in Europe to ensure that these projects can be maintained, and also that new projects would have an identifiable location to go to in order to set up a new citizen science project. Quite often, asking projects to get involved in Horizon funding is just not in the game park for a lot of the groups that organize these kind of projects. So we need to develop some sort of method for disseminating money from a central fund.
Okay, thanks. Yes, Darsen?
Yeah, maybe to respond to that, as we did earlier in the chat. I agree that citizen science projects will not wade through Horizon calls and go through that, but that's why this approach of cascade funding is quite useful, because actually the heavy lifting of the administrative lifting of a Horizon call is covered by the main beneficiary, and then that main beneficiary of the cascade call can design the cascading of the funding to small projects to make it fit. That's the point of the cascading. In general, I mean, what you say that it's really hard to mobilize funding for something like citizen science. I can imagine, because I experienced the same thing when we talk about ocean literacy, which is not the same but somehow related, and where I see a big disconnect because everyone somehow wanting it. Example, we experienced this in the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, where no one disagrees and everyone still rhetorically gets excited behind having it and the concept and so on. But when it comes to really allocating funding from the traditional support schemes to something more innovative like ocean literacy or then citizen science, I think that's just not there yet. So the best I think at the moment we can do is we advocate. If you think citizen science is super important and actually really beneficial, advocate for it. And I think PREP4BLUE is actually doing a good job in demonstrating the value. I was very impressed by the other Dave's presentation and that group. Yeah, I think that's the best we can do to put these innovative methods to research and innovation more into mainstream.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we don't need to step away from the Horizon style funding, because that still locks you into a 3-year, 4-year program of funding, whereas the kind of funding that citizen science and ocean literacy needs is longer term than that. So I think there needs to be some new thinking maybe on that side of things, perhaps at a EU level.
One of the answers that may be starting on that aspect also is like the community-led actions project that were submitted last year and are starting this year. So it may be a solution on that aspect also, but again, it will be like one-shot fundings. It's a start, not the best, but it's a start already. I know it is the same issue also on continuous funding for ocean observation, for example. Also, it's like really the groundwork of a lot of science done at national but also European level is based on initiatives that have a hard time getting funds. That's something we've seen also globally, and we experienced, for example, with the pilot activities in Work Package 3. They selected 5 or 6 pilot activities with community-led actions with organizations on the ground. And they had a huge impact and a really interesting outcome also on that. So I agree with you on pushing that forward. Yes, Dave, I see you. And David White. You can hide yourself. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I'm just here. That's all. Nothing new to add for now.
Okay, good. What do we have else? Is there somebody else who wants to add on that discussion on citizen science funding?
I might just add, because I forgot to do it in my presentation, that the network engaged kind of on the ground in place research done in PREP4BLUE in ocean literacy networks and for those pilot actions was led by ICM CSIC in Spain. I just forgot to mention them in the presentation, and they did fantastic work.
Yes, Massey?
Yeah, short comment. Dave, Dave Wall, sorry. We worked together in a proposal on citizen science, so we have talked about these aspects. And yeah, I agree with you. We need to ensure a funding, long-lasting funding for supporting this kind of initiatives. My organization is involved as a research body in the program for the collection of data on fish stock and halieutic resources. And even if we are a research body managed by the government and our relationship is directly with the government, we are facing the same problems with continuity and funding and progress and so on. But at the same time, we are relying more and more on citizen science initiatives and resources. And even if it's not an institutionalized approach, we consider this kind of initiatives as part of our portfolio of services for assuring this data collection. So I think that including in the terms of reference of the tenders for providing this kind of services to the national authorities and directly to European Commission could be part of the solution. Considering some long-lasting initiatives as those for coordinating this kind of collaborative research with those agencies and bodies entitled for data collection could be also a solution. So yeah, I think that addressing it through policies could be also another way for valorizing the work done by citizen science initiatives and assuring a long-lasting funding. Yeah.
I'm just checking. Somebody wrote about the use of Agora, of this looking into the Trello and the communication tool. I don't know who from Agora is still present. If you can maybe have a word on that, how this helped you, and so. Okay. Not sure. I don't know the exact name of the person, so I cannot handpick her on that. I saw also in the one of the interesting part was about the impact pathways, but somebody wrote also that all the tools developed by PREP4BLUE would be of interest. I don't know who wrote that, but if they could expand on that, because it's tools really wide and broad type of subjects. So could you maybe explain a bit more your comment on that?
No reaction, but maybe, oh, Cecilia. I was about to maybe ask both Clina and Cecilia to give a little bit of an overview of how this turns into legacy from our results, and how can we accompany people to take up on this knowledge transfer method.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I raised my hand actually to the uptake of all the tools developed in PREP4BLUE. And also there was a comment to use what was already developed and not to reinvent the wheel. I don't see the comment right now, but it was in that line. And so I wanted to comment on that, actually based on a very recent experience. Like yesterday, I don't know if you know that the west-south of Europe was in blackout, and I was also involved. And there, we didn't know how long this would last, how long we would not have energy, no internet, no water at some point, because it's also based on energy. So all the systems could have collapsed after a few days and so on. So we really thought it would have been great to do some innovations and to be faster, for example, in terms of resilience, in terms of energy systems, and to have all systems more resilient. And I think that affects us also a lot in the blue economy, but also in ecosystem services and nature restoration. So I think in these terms, I just wanted to share that the knowledge management and knowledge transfer methodology can be used to accelerate the transfer, uptake, and impact of that knowledge. So that there might have been something developed in a research innovation action, in an innovation action, which really can help the mission. I think it's great to know about the solution and to transfer it and not to refund it again and again, to start all over all the time. Because based on the experience yesterday, everybody in southwest of Europe would have been very happy to have more resilient systems. And we don't know when this day might come when we would be really happy to have implemented these solutions earlier. So I think that's a key message and a key learning from yesterday. And also we have the tools, we have the methods prepared for the first phase of the mission to now really accelerate this in the next transfer and implementation phase of the mission. Maybe Clina, you might want to add something to that.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, Irini and Cecile. Impact and achievement of impact and the utilization of knowledge transfer methodologies and tools is really core to the work we do in ERIN ourselves. We've been doing this for quite a while, and we do apply it in all of the projects that we have. I think we're in around 24 projects now funded by the European Commission. We feel it's really, really important. So it's I suppose when I think about it, it's kind of two sides of the same coin. There's one is the methodologies, the principles, it's the thinking behind what we want to do. And it's about moving beyond communication and even dissemination, where you're pushing out information about a project, about the approach, the methodologies, the results, and instead focusing more on the pathway to impact and putting in the time, the resources, and they're quite significant. It is a significant cost to do this work correctly and to the right level of detail, but to put in that investment into understanding the pathway. And as Cecilia said, the pathway is the most efficient and effective journey to bring a knowledge towards the impact can achieve. And if we put in that time and investment, then the knowledge transfer activity should be more beneficial, more impactful, and that journey should be made faster and more evidence. We'd have evidence of uptake, evidence of application, evidence of that impact being achieved. So that is the thinking, the principles, the methodology. In PREP4BLUE, we've also been trialing and piloting tools that can help support that work to make it easier and more efficient. There's no one person that knows everything in all the different thematics and domains. Under Mission Ocean, there's so many nuances and details that you could spend a whole career trying to understand all the different details. But with these tools, it can help narrow that down, to help do your landscape mapping, to map your pathway to impact. And there was a comment there as well, again, like Cecilia said, about not duplicating efforts, but also in encouraging projects to utilize this approach and these tools. And I suggest that needs to be top down, but also peer to peer. I mean, in this group earlier, I saw there was over 60 participants on this call, and no more than ourselves and Erin, I'm sure each of your organizations are involved in multiple projects where there is really good results being generated, good knowledge, good solutions that could overcome some of the challenges we're facing. And really, we would really love it if you could help spread the word about what PREP4BLUE has done, the results we have achieved, the methodologies, the tools that we are showcasing that are available for everyone to use. We're very open. Everything is publicly available and accessible. And ideally, we would love for multiple projects to start looking into this, seeing what they can do with the knowledge transfer online showcasing modules, look at the different deliverables, look at how we are proposing you approach this work, and contact us. We are very happy to talk to people about how this can be applied, because we really believe this is a way forward in trying to accelerate that impact being achieved and having us overcome some of the big issues that we know are affecting the the world today. Cecilia, have you put your hand up again, or is that the same hand?
Actually, I did. And I really, really want to emphasize what you just said. And also, again, the urgency of the restoration and protection of our oceans, of the mitigation of climate, of litter, bringing the blue economy forward in a circular way. So these are our objectives. And yeah, I really want to emphasize the urgency of it. And as you're saying, we have now the methods and tools to do that efficiently, effectively. So yeah, in that line, I hope that the next phase of the mission will also be very successful and that we will all work on that together.
I would say go ahead. All our resources and results are out there. You can go and pick whatever you want and use it and reshare or transform what we've done and work that on a basis. It was really the point also of PREP4BLUE is really like the stepping stone for the mission. So we don't expect our results to be final. We expect them to be taken over by the other stakeholders of the mission, the other mission project, or even people, the citizens and so on, and to move forward with that and have something maybe the same or maybe completely different at the end of the mission also.
I would like to pick up maybe the comment on not reinventing the wheel and then encouraging the next generation of project to really use our tools. This is something we have experienced as firsthand on seeing in the beginning of the first phase of the mission, still the landscape being quite mobile, different projects approaching the same topics, the same tasks from a different way. And then we try to work together, complementary, PREP4BLUE being an overarching CSA mission implementation platform, being there to guide us through and then make the linkages with the Secretariat throughout a longer period than PREP4BLUE. It has been challenging, but at the end, quite productive and collaborative. And we learned a lot.
We're arriving at the end of our meeting and our conference. So let's say this, it's done. PREP4BLUE, the final conference is finished. Thanks all, we've done amazing work. We'll still have a final stretch, so 1 month left with a few more deliverables and 1 or 2 important meetings, nothing much. But keep on going, and thanks everyone for your presentation, collaboration, and work done. See you by email or by next visio conference. And for your information, for the externals, we're collecting all the presentations and we'll make them available probably through our websites.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
In Ireland. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good bon appetit.
Yeah.
I will stop recording.